Do we need to wear sunscreen when it's winter outside? I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to read you an article I found that lists all of the reasons why we should wear sunscreen during the winter. If we're meeting for the first time, hi, I'm Shawn. This is my channel, Melanoma Mom. Welcome. Please consider subscribing. I do videos like this where I talk about preventing skin cancer. I also do sunscreen reviews as well as UPF clothing reviews. All right, let's go into this article. This popped up on Facebook for me, and it is by the Melanoma Research Alliance. And I think it's a very important thing to consider, and one that I did not even think about until I was diagnosed with melanoma skin cancer in January of this past year. And that is wearing sunscreen in cold weather and cold climates. In the winter, a lot of us are spending more time outside. I know I am. Although it doesn't get very cold here so far, but I grew up in the mountains of North Carolina and there was lots of snow, and my mom never put sunscreen on my face. And one of the things this article points out is that snow and ice reflect sunlight and intensify UVA and UVB rays. Now, as a child, I do remember getting sunburnt right here. When we were out sledding, playing in the snow for long hours, I would get sunburn right here, and my mother would call it windburn. But she would call that whether or not the wind was blowing outside or not. So I don't think it was windburn. Now that I think back at it as an adult, it was definitely a sunburn. And my mom probably just had this misconception that most people have, that you cannot get a sunburn or sun damage in the winter. None of us were thinking about the sun reflecting down on the snow that was then reflecting up onto our faces. So if you're planning to be outdoors, whether that's hiking or skiing or sledding, any sort of activities, anytime you're outdoors, in my opinion, you should be wearing sunscreen. It's important. Just make it be a habit where you put it on every day, no matter what the weather is. Raining, sunshine, cold weather, hot weather, sunscreen. Get into a habit of wearing sunscreen. Although I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just trying to prevent people from getting skin cancer. I wish I had known this. And when people had told me stuff, I wish I had taken it seriously. This article also says wind and low moisture levels are tough on skin. Definitely. I notice that my skin gets drier with cold weather. My hands especially. Oh my goodness. I'm constantly washing my hands, putting hand sanitizer on, and they never seem to be moisturized enough. I love the Supergoop hand sunscreen. You can get just a little bitty bottle. I think it's like $19, which is kind of expensive. They also make, where is it? I just did an Empties review, so I have all my empty sunscreens sitting here, but this one by Aveeno is also a good sunscreen that also moisturizes your hands, I found. Get something to put on your hands that's also moisturizing. In my purse right now, there is a body butter sunscreen. Oh, it's so moisturizing. I love putting that on my skin, my arms, my legs, everywhere during the colder months. Okay, this article says that sunscreen in the winter can help restore some of your skin's depleted moisture. Another thing I had never thought about was that the ozone layer is thinnest in winter. Okay, is this a thing? Evidently this is a thing I didn't even know about. The ozone layer is thinner at the Earth's poles where temperatures are very low, and the coverage is thinnest elsewhere around the globe during the colder winter months. That means even though the sun doesn't feel as hot, you are actually exposed to greater intensity UV rays. I hadn't even considered that. Ozone layer is at its thinnest. I feel like I want to do more research about that. Okay, the article also says winter weather makes sunscreen wear off more quickly because of wind, snow, sleet, and putting coats and jackets, pulling all of that stuff on and off. And I definitely see that. So I like to put sunscreen every morning, probably up to like my elbow, and then where my scar is, all the way up to my shoulder line, because I have a tendency to do this when I go inside, or when I get hot, or wherever I am, I pull up my sleeves, and then I have all this exposed skin. And I do notice that some of my sunscreens they probably wear off, right? when I'm doing this constantly, pulling on a jacket. So reapplying sunscreen is important, as well as putting that layer on even in the winter time, even though it's cold. The article also says, in winter, you are still at risk for skin cancer from sun damage because unlike UVB rays, the strength of UVA rays is consistent all year long. So I have questions about this because on my phone, I have the weather app. So it tells you the UV, and I have like the UV index. And I have noticed that the UV index goes down in the winter and then gets higher in the summer. That seems to be the opposite, because doesn't the UV index take into consideration both UVA and UVB rays? So I would think that both of those would be lower because in winter, right, the planet is like, this is the sun, here's the sun, here's Earth, right? We're further away from the sun during winter, correct? We're not closer, we're further away, still spinning further away. So both rays should be less, right? But this article says UV rays are consistent all year long. Is that something you guys have heard? I would like to have more information on that. Another reason to wear sunscreen in the winter, this says, is use up your sunscreen before it expires. Most sunscreens diminish in efficacy after just 12 months. And I was so guilty of this before having skin cancer. I would use up half of a bottle of sunscreen one summer, and then I would reuse that half the next summer, thinking it was still effective, and wondering why I got sunburnt. I mean, it makes sense. Sunscreens have expiration dates. I may have to start writing the date on some of my sunscreens, but honestly now, because we're all wearing so much more sunscreen, we go through them so much faster. So if you still have a sunscreen that you used last year, that you still have from the year before, go ahead and throw it away right now. Just go throw away your sunscreen. If you used it last summer, it's not effective anymore. You need to buy new ones. So I was definitely guilty of that. Let me know, what are your thoughts about wearing sunscreen in the winter? Do you wear sunscreen in the winter? I would love to know. Has this discussion changed your thoughts, and will you now be wearing sunscreen in the winter? I'd love to know. Oh, and I know some of you may say, well, what about vitamin D? We need to have vitamin D. Our sun needs exposure to vitamin D. I have done a video on that. I'll link it down below. The gist of it is we still get vitamin D through our sunscreen because our sunscreen doesn't block everything out. Those of us who have not had skin cancer, a few minutes of sun, just walking to your mailbox, getting into your car, you're gonna get your vitamin D that way. Those of us who have skin cancer, who have had skin cancer before, we have to be a lot more careful. We have to cover ourselves up, or at least that's what my dermatologist tells me. That's the articles I've read. And so a supplement is the way to go to get more vitamin D. But that's in a video for another discussion. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.